All right. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of FitFam. This is a special episode we're doing on muscle performance and aging. So we're real excited because some actual research that was done about 4 years ago has resurfaced a lot, I think, because of TikTok and things. But it's shown some pictures and brought to light some research that was done then. And then there's some brand new research that was done really showing the truth about aging and what is the norm out there versus what should be normal.
Okay.
And so we're going to kind of talk a little bit about it. And really, the thing that I dislike very much.
You dislike something?
I know, it's crazy.
Tell me.
So when people say, you know what, you're doing good.
Can I just make it a point? You're not that much taller
so much taller
than me.
Phew.
You're not.
So when people say, that's greght you're doing good for,
For your age?
for a 55-year-old, for a
dislike
60-year-old,
that a lot.
for like that. And I'm like, no, I'm doing good for a human being at any age, type
But
thing.
okay, you know
And
what?
so-
I that comment used to bother me, but actually it doesn't bother me. And I don't think it should bother you because after the age of 25, or after the age of 30, what starts to happen?
Well, we don't secrete growth hormone anymore, so we have to be in charge of figuring that out. But we can do it.
But do you have to work harder as you age to look the same way that you did when you were younger?
Oh, absolutely. You have to work
Okay,
hard.
so I feel like it's funny that bothers you because I think that's actually a great compliment. Understanding the fact that you do have to work harder the older you get.
Maybe from that standpoint, yeah. I think more for me from the standpoint of many times, and then we're going to go over it a little bit, in the areas of performance of different things. It's like you get put into this category to where you feel like, okay, it's okay to be less and less and less. And
I see what you're saying.
there is some truth to that of as we age, right, that things do slow down. But I think what we want to start with is, when is that really supposed to happen? When are you really supposed to start losing strength, speed, your body's ability to perform like you want it to?
When are you supposed to? Tell me.
Well, there is cell senescence. There is aging, right?
Right.
We do know that is a part of life, but in all reality, if you look at our biologies, we should be able to keep up almost every single thing as far as strength is concerned, actually pretty close to speed, right? Everything clear up into the age of 70.
70?
70. That our bodies are meant to be able to do that if they're trained right and you eat right. That's not me just speaking that. That's from the research. I'll go over the research. Hilary doesn't believe me.
No, I actually do believe you because I'm constantly impressed at your ability to keep up with the guys you lift with. Doug works out in a car with guys that are half his age and maybe even less than half your age. How old are you? 58? 50. So what's half your age?
28.
Darius is less than half your age.
Maybe.
So anyway, I feel like, yeah, I could see a lot of truth to that. Now, that's as far as performance and speed. You're saying like strength and speed for the most part you should be able to keep up. What is like a non? Like how about like agility? That changes earlier.
Agility,
right?
yeah, because as you age, you lose twice as much fast twitch muscle as slow twitch. And so you will get to a point where you can't jump as high.
Well, and like you
right?
lose
And your proprioception.
Yeah, you
right?
lose your
ability.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of that is trained, and the more effort you put into it as you age, the better you do get. And so there's parts of that are a factor. And so I guess really just to kind of jump into it, if you take a look right now, right, at people that have kept up their training properly, right, not gone with the world's way of the way you should do things and go on TRT and go on different drugs and, all this stuff. But if you do it right, there are athletes that are, 45 years of age, not just keeping up, but whooping up on the 20, 25-year-olds, right? You had the Tom Brady's well in past, 45, and a lot of these great athletes. And what made these athletes be able to do that? Was it their genetics? Well, you look at someone like Brady, and we're going to be hearing from his trainer's going to come speak at our seminar in September that everyone's invited to. We'll talk about it. But you take a look at him. He was actually not a very good athlete, and it was the training and the discipline. So genetics really weren't the big play with him. The play was that he specifically trained for those things that can start to go unless we focus on them as we age. The speed, the agility, the strength, all those factors. And so it made it so that his wisdom and years of experience actually benefited him as he got older, and he kept his strength because now he was further ahead. And so we're not all Tom Brady's, we're not all in that situation, but look at even in your sport, Hillary's sport of bodybuilding, a figure of who has the best figure. We're talking solid, like muscle and shape and that from the glutes and everywhere else, where we say, well, as age happens, things just start to sag or you just can't be as good. The winners in your division many years have been women
40s
older
and 50s.
than you.
Yeah.
And you won the Masters at 40, right? And done phenomenal. So basically, what we're trying to say is that the way the world is right now, aging wise, and what we think how we should be at a certain age isn't true. And you were commenting on that earlier on what you see now versus in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. If you take, and we've actually done this with photographs from your parents back in the day, right? Because Doug's a little bit older, so his parents are,
My parents were a lot older than me too, so it was
right.
really big.
So we're talking.
My dad didn't have me till he was 50.
Right. So they were born.
Early 1900s.
1913, something like that. Anyway, so if we look back at the photographs from their era
40s
versus, and we've done this, versus the photographs of our era, the vast majority of crowds look totally different. We're talking about a complete generational change. When in your parents' day, the men were slender, the women were a little bit more slender. Even if there was a little bit of body fat, it didn't flow into the realm of obesity.
Right.
But now, if you look at a crowd of people, the majority, we're not just looking at flab, we're also looking at obesity in the vast majority.
Yeah, and you're looking at a lot more pain, and you can just see it in people's eyes and in their skin of just toxins and stuff. So,
and I think it's a combination. It's not just movement and exercise, which I feel like that's huge. I feel like in their day, movement and exercise was such a big part of everyday life. You had to be out working. That and baking and cooking, even those things, you don't even think about it, but even those things, your movement was a lot more back in those days. And then also we started to introduce more and more processed foods, and they got worse and worse. So,
and that's a huge factor. And I think that the activity, to stay on it for a second, is a huge point, because a lot of the new research studies have come out and they have said that is a huge difference. That the top two main differences is nutrition and exercise. And I think it's three. I think it's a mindset too, because we're looking around saying, oh, that's the norm. That's what happens in 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And, we go to Walmart or we go places and you're like, holy cow. And people start to accept that. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. So the mindset, but as Hilary was saying, to stay on more of the exercise for a second, the new research studies, this new one that I loved, just came out, talked about chronic exercise preserves lean muscle mass. And they did a study on masters athletes, meaning people that not just bodybuilding, but track athletes as they got older and things, and looked at them. And they saw that this whole thought of, well, you need to exercise, but don't exercise as much. You don't need to do as much strength training. I talked to a surgeon a while back. They said, oh, you
don't do any.
Don't do any strength training
body.
At your age. Yeah, don't do that. It's bad stuff. And this study completely disproves all of that. So we're talking a lot of the medical doctor community and everyone else that just makes blanket statements without research, because someone will come in with an injury as they're older, like, oh, well, you're just old, don't do that anymore, versus no, what was your lifestyle like that led to that? And if you change the lifestyle, it'll be much better. Anyways, the study said that chronic exercise as you got older was even more important, meaning that you pushed harder as you got older.
Yeah.
You pushed harder in the gym with the weights. You pushed harder with your aerobics. The exact opposite, but one thing with it, they're saying make sure you do more agility movements. But as long as you're doing agility movements to keep, like you had mentioned, your proprioception and your balance in place, that you should actually go harder as you age, because it is a little bit harder to keep your muscle mass.
Yeah. No, I love that. And then in our Muscle Up report, we talk about how we gain a pound of disease-causing fat for every pound of muscle we lose. So it's not just the concept of losing muscle. Something is replacing that, right? And so once you lose that muscle, you're just more prone to gaining fat.
Right, and so you have cells. You have muscle cells and fat cells, and they either enlarge or contract. So it's not like we replace one with the other. What Hilary's meaning is that basically your muscle cells start to shrink, and so that space is now going to be taken with fat cells, and they actually will keep going and keep going, and that's a huge problem.
I think we need to jump into how I got some serious hate the last time we talked about how much.
I love this.
How many calories a pound of muscle can burn, up to the amount of calories a pound of muscle can burn, versus what a pound of fat can burn. And I got some hate when we talked about that. I
thought it was awesome because that meant
Woo!
people were starting to be active in it, and Hilary didn't like it, and I loved it. And so yeah.
There's a huge controversy about this right now.
All right.
Everybody's talking about the truth of the matter. So be very specific. Explain this.
1990 studies, very conclusive.
I was 10.
Take Dr. Wayne Westcott, Dr. Ellington Darden, PhDs. Am I detailed enough?
You're doing great.
Absolutely did the research and proved that a pound of muscle has the capability at its ultimate level of performance strength, right? No fat in it, and it can burn up to 100 calories a day. And that a pound of fat burns 3. And that was taught based on everything that we knew, and that was taught for many years. And then this new group of scientists and stuff in the world has come out, and a lot of them have said, oh, that is such the biggest, bunch of bunk. Muscle barely burns more than fat. And saying, that the opposite of that, because if you take a look at a pound of muscle, if you burn 100 calories, how many pounds are on your body? And you do the math on that, and they're saying there's just no way. And it causes huge controversy versus looking at the big picture. And that's what happens a lot in the scientific community, is people start really focusing on such little details instead of what are you trying to figure out to help people improve their health. And so what happened was Hilary reported that, and people are jumping all over Instagram and everything saying that's not true, and all these armchair quarterbacks or even like scientists were commenting on it. And no one was getting what she was saying, and that is that muscle burns more than fat. A pound of muscle burns more than fat, and the size that it takes to have a pound of muscle is less than a pound of fat.
Yeah, so 20%, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that 1 pound of fat takes up 20% more space than a pound of muscle? That's why I always love the conversation around muscle, because so many times and
With women
especially, and less nowadays, I would say, but back in the day, women were like, oh no, I'm not building any muscle, I'm not trying to lift weights at all because I don't want to look big and bulky, when in actuality you look more toned
More
and
feminine,
smaller
more shapely.
when you have larger muscle, because it takes up less room than fat does.
And a good point of that is most people aren't going to want to get on stage and be bodybuilders, right? They don't want to be like Hilary and stuff. And that is great, and it's actually a better understanding, because if you just build good, strong muscle, you're actually going to get leaner and smaller. Right. That's why natural bodybuilding is such a phenomenal sport, because first of all, you got to get rid of all the fat. You actually get smaller. You get the muscle strong. You get smaller, right? And then you've got to find ways to build it. Bless you. You got to find ways to build it back up. And that is a crazy art. It's not easy to do.
No,
so
sure.
anyways, so back to putting this at rest, no matter what, and everyone agrees with this, that muscle burns at least 3 times more than fat.
So that can be...
So that can be a common ground.
Yeah, there we go.
So why wouldn't you have a pound of muscle that takes up less room, especially ladies, that burns at least 3 times more?
Which means that you can then eat more.
Exactly.
So
muscle burns more, and the exact caloric count can be argued, but the bottom line is it's at least 3 times more than the same amount of fat. So you want more muscle than you want fat for a multitude of reasons. In fact, maybe go into some of the other benefits of muscle.
Of muscle? Awesome. I love that. So they're vast. Lowered risk of diabetes. Strong, healthy muscle helps to reduce the risk of severity of diabetes by increasing the body's sensitivity to insulin, which makes total sense, right? This eases the workout on the pancreas. So I love that. Lowered risk of colon cancer. People with active muscles have half the colon cancer risk than those with insufficient muscle.
Yeah, and this actually holds true even more for men. Studies on colon cancer and muscle, so it increases your risk dramatically for both, but more for men.
Okay, a lowered risk of osteoporosis. Strong muscles are the driving force that tells the body to send nutrients to bones for strengthening. Calcium will not go into the bones unless muscles send the stimulus to the brain to direct it.
New study. So cool.
I was like, high five? What are you doing? Okay.
Just yesterday.
Whoa.
Super cool. And what they showed was that you should actually train with heavier weights to build bone density versus lighter weights. And the people that go heavier build more bone density. Kind of makes sense.
Yep.
But a lot of times people will say, well, I have a bone density issue. Well, then don't lift heavy weights. You'll break a bone.
Yeah.
Opposite.
So, and it can be a difficult conversation to have with people because I know so often people are trying to express the pain that they have, like the back pain, and then we try to inform or educate that it's so important to build muscle then to lessen the back pain. But it is hard to wrap your mind around, well, no, I'm in pain. I can't lift weights when you need the muscle.
So if your bone is more brittle, you have osteopenia or osteoporosis, then you can't slam weights and throw them. You don't want to create that joint,
Right.
but you want to lift heavy, slower, right? And then the same holds true for people, you were talking earlier when we were discussing this, of people with like kyphosis, cervical problems, thoracic problems, lumbar problems,
And
right?
the ability for nutrients to get past the blood-brain barrier, that was kind of the discussion.
It was, and it's impeded by, your posture. Same thing with nerve function is impeded by your posture. And I think part of, if a person has that, like say kyphosis or something, that it's important to strength train because what's happening is the chest muscles are tightening and the back muscles are loosening. And so if you really tighten the back muscles a lot more and build them, then it'll actually help.
Yeah, do you
create that.
remember when you would train your parents? And because your mom
Really bad
suffered with
kyphosis.
really, really terrible, but as she would do her workouts, it would improve, and she would say she had way less pain here. So,
And she had osteoporosis, and we strength trained her, and it actually
strength trained her clear into her mid-80s.
mid-80s, and actually got rid of the osteoporosis completely. Did the T-score, the bone density scan, actually went all the way from osteoporosis to normal bone, actually not even osteopenia, from strength training. So absolutely important.
Yeah, I will treasure the memories of watching Doug train his parents, his mom being, before your dad passed, so your mom in her early 80s and your dad in his early 90s. And they still trained with weights. It was pretty cool. Anyways, so less back and neck pain, of course. Strong muscles support our posture. So that's just what you were just discussing. Increased libido, mood, and energy levels.
Well, there's great research on that too, on compound movements and actual strength training versus aerobics. That the more strength training, compound movements you do where more than one joint moves, where you use multiple muscle groups, increases testosterone dramatically. And I think that we've had a lot of clients and people over the years that, they might say, oh, wow, your supplements are phenomenal, or nutrition, my testosterone went up, or, my testosterone estrogen balance, like women's hormones balancing. And it's true, the nutrition and supplements are critical, but they don't put enough a weight toward and credit toward exercise, because exercise can help balance hormones, increase libido, increase testosterone dramatically.
Yeah, I love that one. Who doesn't want a better libido, mood, and energy?
Absolutely.
Right?
And you have a lot of people that's the reason they come to their holistic health professional, or that is because just of that.
Those three, and libido sometimes being at the top. They want to feel how they felt when they were younger.
Absolutely.
So, lowered risk of depression. I stinking love this one, and I love this one because of the, the depression and the suicide that has run in my family due to depression. So very soon we're going to do a podcast with my brother, who's kind of taken his health into his own hands and really improved a lot of his
Phenomenal change.
Yeah, and it'll be such a great discussion. But strong muscles are just as effective as antidepressants. I love this, with treating moderate cases of depression, and they lack the dangerous side effects, of course, that antidepressants can give. People who have lost muscle and start gaining it back see improvements in mood and cognition. Strong, healthy muscle boosts self-confidence at any age.
Yeah, and that was studies showing strength training versus people on actual drugs, depression drugs, and that you got the same, if not better, benefit from the strength training, especially when you weigh in, as you had mentioned, the side effects. So this isn't just like speaking it, this is actual studies proving what you're saying.
Right. Better brain function, which was what we were just discussing. And it's just about sending those electrical signals that need to go, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the brain can make the chemicals, dopamine, serotonin.
Right. So improved posture and movement. We've kind of already discussed that one as well. And then increased longevity. People who exercise and maintain their muscle enjoy a longer lifespan. They have they are half as likely as sedentary people to die early in life.
And that's a huge number that I think is a really important. And that leads to kind of another study that was talking about. And this doctor is really cool because this doctor is known for, and we're going to put it up here on the screen, this doctor is known for a very cool study that was done on muscle, where they did MRIs of muscle and they showed the muscle itself. And she believes that people should be able to maintain actual physical capabilities at a high level up to 75. I say 70, so we're talking no matter
You should
what.
cross your fingers to 75.
I do 75. So the point is, and I know where you're going, but that's okay. But basically, it was where they took weightlifters, they took people that were, in the older Olympics and those types of things, and looked at their muscles and looked at their strength and their coordination and ability, and compared it to younger. And they're saying, even though they couldn't compete at the Olympic level against the 30, 40-year-olds type thing, their times were only a few minutes off on, long runs and a few seconds off on the shorter distances and things, which takes them out of Olympic medal capability, but still an extremely fit level of the body. And the pictures that we're showing you right now that are on the screen, if you take a look at those, it's absolutely crazy as to what happens with a person when it comes to muscle. So if you look at the top one, it's a 40-year-old triathlete, so a person in great shape at 40, and in the white thing in the middle is the bone, then the red all around it, or the dark around it, is the muscle. You see that there's no interlacings of fat there, right? So that muscle can perform at the highest level, help provide the chemicals for libido, mood, energy, mobility, everything that we're talking about, right? And then there's a picture of a 74-year-old sedentary man.
Wow.
And so again, that red, you see the bone in the middle, and take a look at that bone. It's not as big, right? So the bone is shrinking, the frailty, right? You think as you get older, and then the muscle, a lot less, and all the white around that is called adipose tissue, which is just fat. And now this is a cross section of the quadricep, right? So the largest muscles in the body, your thighs, okay, your quadricep muscles. And so you think, okay, well, that's what it's supposed to be. But then they took an MRI picture of a 70-year-old. And
that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, the bone almost identical to the same size as a 40-year-old. And the muscle itself there. So burning more fat that we talked about, creating the brain chemicals, the libido, the mood, the agility, the ability to not fall, right? That proprioception, if you train it that way.
Correct.
And so what did this prove? This proved that the key is your lifestyle. The key is what you do on the daily basis is more important than age. And that you can actually have the muscle and the body of a 40-year-old, 30-year-old triathlete, so an athlete up into the 70s. So this is where this doctor came with the 75-year-old thing, because this was the 70-year-old triathlete and all the way up. So bottom line is we know it's possible. And the purpose of this podcast today is to say sarcopenia is a disease, age-related muscle loss. It's real, but we've accepted that it happens way sooner than it's supposed to, and you can stop it. You can reverse it. Even if you take a person that had lost all of the muscle, you can regain it back. It's not too late.
Yeah,
and there's things you can do to do that.
I also love the way that we constantly train versus some other forms. Not that it's not great to do a lot of these other muscle building workouts and things for people. I think form is incredibly important when you're lifting. But when we're talking about people that have been out of the gym for a long time and are starting to lift again, the best thing that you can do is start with lower weights and slow movements. So to put the muscle under tension longer with slower movements. So it doesn't have to be this huge amount of weight, which, your goal is to move up and to progress and to get heavier, of course. But starting out when you're building muscle, slow and controlled movements is absolutely the best way to go about it.
Absolutely. And going back to even training my parents, the 80s and 90s, the key is muscle fatigue. And you can hit muscle fatigue going slow. Right now, if I did a 60-second push-up, right, one push-up,
right, in 60
seconds, I'm going to create as much muscle fatigue as going in doing a big workout with weights or doing hundreds of push-ups. And so it's muscle fatigue. So as Hilary's saying, as you get started, you're getting back into the gym or working out again, or you're not even going to a gym, you're starting to work out again. Slow it down, right? Control the movements. Use machines. Work on form.
Use machines that move with you.
100%.
So great. Anyways, okay, so let's discuss some other factors that are not age-related to muscle loss. Things like maybe surgeries, illnesses, low-calorie diets, and I'm sure we're going to get some feedback from this one, high-protein diets. So
give us some feedback. So give it to us. Protein doesn't build muscle. So I'll start from the bottom up. We'll start with the one that's somewhat controversial if people don't read research. So the bottom line is that I'm not a high protein person because I read the research. And new research that just came out, and people aren't even wanting to talk about it, showing that if you take in more than 22% of your calories a day in protein, your testosterone lowers, your strength isn't as high, you don't build as much muscle. So it is true. But you get people saying, oh, yes, you need a pound or a gram and a half per pound of body weight and all these things. You start doing these high proteins, you lower your testosterone, you imbalance your hormones, you're not able to build muscle. And let me just give you the bottom just line reason why.
Okay.
Is we believe in protein more than most people, even though we don't go as high a protein. And the reason is that you want to spare protein, that when you eat protein, you want that protein to be used for building muscle, for creating high-density lipoproteins, the things that protein is supposed to be used for in the body, the building blocks. And you don't want it to have to be converted and used for energy to create for sugar, things like that. You don't want to go through those processes of gluconeogenesis. You don't want that to happen. You want it to be, so what's the best way to do that? Is take in just enough protein to build muscle and other things protein's used for, and make sure you have enough healthy carbohydrates and fats to do their job so your body doesn't have to convert the protein. And that conversion is what causes problems, is when the protein has to be used for something else, or you have an excess and the body can't use it. You create excess uric acid, joint problems, arthritis. So absolutely, the high protein diets are not the way to go. We just had a client that we lowered their protein and boosted their testosterone to 900, and he's in his, 40s or 50s? Or like 40s. And a lot of it had to do with protein and helping him digest the protein better. So there's that one. How about low-calorie diets? So low-calorie diets, not getting enough nutrients.
Yeah.
Period, for muscle growth. And that we see that with bodybuilders, right? They start going low-calorie, they go catabolic.
They go catabolic, and they mess with their metabolism.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, how
you
about...
You want to stay anabolic.
State of muscle growth. Illness?
So that's a big one, because the body wants to, body is priority system, uses that priority system, right? And priority systems stay alive. So when you're sick, the body's going to put all its resources to help kill the bacteria, the virus, or whatever. And, being catabolic for a while, being in a state of muscle loss, isn't going to kill you. So your body can lose a lot of muscle really, really quick when you're sick. And that's why it's super
everything's
important.
being driven towards getting you healthy.
Just healthy, keeping you alive. Yeah, and so that's why it's very important to get back in the gym as soon as possible. And what's the other one?
Love it. And then, of course, surgery, which that one makes sense because obviously if you're cutting into muscle, that's going to create some issues. And then also the anesthesia, I think that messes with cortisol and, right?
Yep, absolutely. And I think there's a good transition into supplements, just to kind of finish up, is that during surgeries, they found that whether it's knee surgery or any other surgery that has to do with the muscle, that if they pump the body with glutamine, the most abundant amino acid in the body and the main amino acid the body uses for recovery, that people don't lose as much muscle. They don't go catabolic as much. So they're starting to do that a lot more with the athletes, especially with major surgeries. And like when Nevaeh, our daughter, had 2 knee surgeries, that whole time we gave her high amounts of certain nutrients, glutamine and other things, to where she came back and was 100%, in both knees. And
so before we go into the rest of the muscle building nutrients, so we talked about resistance exercise, for steps to building and sustaining muscle. And then we've talked kind of about a balanced diet, basically, like not going excessively high in protein, having your protein sparing carbs, right? Eating the carbohydrates that your body needs to use as energy, and then a decent amount of fat to keep your hormone production where it needs to be.
And maybe just as a caveat to that, the importance of not processed foods.
Yes.
That the research now on the phthalates, the different things with the plastics and the chemicals in the food, that they're disrupting our hormones. And if your hormones are imbalanced, it's hard for your body to stay anabolic. So again, staying away from processed chemicals,
and
sodas.
I will say this next one, this one little other thing that can help you, it's probably the one that helps me sustain my muscle the best.
What's that?
Sleep habits. I can sleep. We have a sleep 8, this bed that like tracks
Thank you, presents.
Thank you, Princess. That tracks our sleep. It is like every night, every morning we wake up and we like hit our thing to see who slept better. We know I slept better for sure, 100%. But my sleep score is like
98,
99, 100, almost every day.
Mine's not quite that.
So I am holding to that. I think I can maintain my muscle mass mostly because I can sleep like a son of a gun.
That's very true.
And I need that 8 hours.
I'm very,
sometimes
very,
9.
very proud of you. Very motivated by you.
Thank you. I hope to help you. Anyways, okay, so then those muscle building nutrients. Let's talk about those bad boys. And to just throw in a little, that patent we have on that.
Awesome. So number one, and I think what our son's doing, I think more than anything else, the impact that our son's having on the industry now with his company, Gains in Bulk, and creatine, right? They're the world's only instantized creatine monohydrate. Isn't so much creatine, because creatine is the main nutrient to help you stay anabolic, to be able to help with muscle growth. It's the most used sports nutrient on the planet. But what he's doing is helping people realize that everyone should take creatine, no matter what, 5 grams a day, period, because of all the research showing that it helps with mental clarity and focus and cognitive function, with memory, with muscle, with movement, with agility, with speed, with strength. So it's one of these just nutrients that's critical. So even though we're saying creatine is your top 5 for today's subject of building muscle, look, everyone should take creatine all the time.
Have the right form. That's the key. So your creatine, we touched on glutamine. Did you want to touch any more on glutamine?
Yeah, so glutamine is I'd say number 2.
Okay.
As far as the most important anabolic nutrient. And the reason it isn't because it helps with the actual ATP or energy or grow. It helps with recovery. And as you just said, recovery is the key. Right. Sleep, and also having enough glutamine in the body to go in and to help with that. Again, even in burn victims, we learned a lot about muscle from burn victims because the exact amino acids that's depleted from the body from a burn victim that causes catabolism and muscle wasting is the exact same ratio from strength training, from putting stress on the muscle. So we're able to gather a lot of research from that. And glutamine is the key. Glutamine, as I mentioned, even in burn victims, they'll pump them full of glutamine. And it stops the fire. It stops the catabolism and allows for muscle growth. It's recovery. So
creatine, glutamine, and then let's go into our branched chain amino acids,
which are
leucine, isoleucine, and valine. And
there are 3 amino acids that interact together to help the body recover and also have more endurance during exercise and stuff. So leucine, isoleucine, and valine are really important.
And then lastly, not amino acids, let's talk about magnesium and then chromium.
So magnesium, luckily, is getting a lot of new hype now. Just a couple different,
Magnesium really
social
is.
media people are finally giving it some what credit it needs, and it's huge. One of our doctors, Dr. Harris, does a phenomenal talk on this for like 2 hours to the health professionals around the nation, and just on magnesium. Magnesium is critical. In fact, just to cut to the chase with it, they did one study of people doing bench press, and the ones that were deficient in magnesium, they showed their bench press, and once they got their magnesium levels up, they were able to double their bench press. So if you're
Wow.
instead of 100 to 200 pounds, all because of
incredible.
magnesium. So magnesium is needed for the reaction to happen, the firing to happen, to allow the muscles to do their job. And so you need magnesium. And then chromium, we're finding out that it's more of a response to help with blood sugar in the body
Okay.
and insulin to help muscle growth in the body.
Love
and
it.
so, so basically there's a patent that we got quite a few years ago. We're actually going through a process right now of renewing it with some new information that we have showing that the combination of those 5 ingredients in the specific form, not just junk forms of those ingredients, can create an anabolic state the same as people being on TRT. So I'm not talking like trenbolone, things like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But of testosterone. And that's huge.
That is huge.
That means that you don't have to take these chemicals and drugs to be able to maintain and grow muscle if you're doing the things that we're talking about. And is it harder to do that versus taking the drugs and you can get away with a little bit more? Sure it is, but that's why I respect the Olympics so much and natural bodybuilding, is it's people that are doing it and doing it naturally, but it's also going to create the longevity. Like everyone should train like a natural bodybuilder. That's the lifestyle you should live. So we tell the doctors just before longevity, because you want that muscle strength, you want that muscle balance, you want that longevity, and the best way to do it is to strength train, eat healthy, take your right nutrients to keep you anabolic, keep your hormones in balance, and then you have a long, happy, healthy life.
And that's it.
Boom.
Boom.
So I'm really excited that we were able to talk about this today.
Yeah, we've talked about muscle before. We just wanted to jump into it again, and especially because there's new research studies just coming out over and over again. So. And,
this is on my mind. I'm going backwards for a quick second before we end, but you just read a study, which is cool. She told me about the study on diet sodas.
Oh, yeah. What was that study? It was about...
It was showing that what you told me. That I think
I
I'd
made
go
it
look
up. It's not true. Just kidding. Just kidding.
No, it was a diet soda showing the damage as far as obesity and just disease of people that drink an average of 1 diet soda a day and on the body, and just how tremendously different it was, and basically making the body, making it so that you're sicker. But in the case of kind of finishing up with this, we've seen that the processed synthetic sugars, the aspartames, the sucraloses, those type of things mess with your thyroid, they mess with the body. It keeps your body from being able to gain as much muscle.
I was wondering where
and they're doing it, and people are doing it saying, well, it's less calorie and it's going to help me lose weight. Think about building muscle. And that's kind of the closing statement I want to
I like that concept. Let's build muscle over the concept of like constantly weight loss, weight loss, weight loss.
And then it'll make it easier to do.
Yes.
Right?
No.
So if we can build up muscle, we've worked with clients that we've worked on muscle, and then all of a sudden this lifestyle that was maybe 80% that they were living, and they're just not quite be able to break the barrier and lose a lot of the body fat, they started losing. They're like, I'm not doing much different over here. Well, yeah, your body's metabolism is higher, and let's keep working on that nutrition, but you focused on building muscle consistently over time. Then after 2 or 3 months, you're getting all that advantage of the additional calories burned, the additional mobility, you're wanting to be more active, you feel better, and then mentally everything comes together synergistically so that you're able to lose that. So if you're struggling out there, you feel like you're doing things pretty well, focus more on your muscle and watch what happens.
Love it. This is Doug, the Formulator.
And as always, Hilary, Miss Natural Olympia.
Thanks for joining us.
Keep chewing.
Keep gaining muscle.